Doctor, let me start with the fact that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has recommended all people ages 16 and older get a COVID 19 vaccination, right? So we're going to talk about that. But first, I want to get to a question from Elizabeth. And this is what she writes. Let's take a look at it. I have a question concerning COVID vaccinations for kids under 12 years old. When would they expect the vaccine to have been tested or sufficient data collected for children under 12 to safely receive the COVID vaccine? I'm sure you get that question a lot, doctor.
Yeah, so that's a really great question, Elizabeth, and one that I've been hearing a lot from all the families that we take care of in our clinic as well. I think for pediatricians, for parents, when we can get our kids protected from COVID-19 has really been top of mind. And thankfully, these trials in kids are well underway. We know that the trials for 5 to 12-year-olds, we're hoping we'll have some of the preliminary data from these trials, hopefully sometime this summer. Some of the projections are around July that we may get some of the initial results. For kids under 5 years old who are also being enrolled in trials, that information probably won't come out for a few months still. We're expecting sometime in early fall. And so we still have a bit of time to wait, but these trials are underway. And so far, everything that we're hearing as compared to the older age groups, so the 12 to 15-year-olds, seems to be really promising. And so we're all kind of anxiously awaiting that information to know when these vaccines might be available for younger kids.
And even asking regarding younger kids as well, it has been proven, it has been shown that these kids are really not in the age group that is unfortunately risky, shall we say, right?
Yeah, so the reason that kids were kind of delayed until later phases for studying the vaccines are a couple of things. One is typically for new vaccine development, it's pretty standard for the vaccine to be trialed in usually healthy adults first. That way, we know kind of how the adult immune system responds before we start trialing these vaccines in kids. When it comes to COVID-19 and this kind of unique pandemic situation that we're in, that's another reason why kids were left until a later stage. We know that this infection is especially serious and quite deadly for older adults and the elderly. And so they were really prioritized in terms of the vaccine trials to help save as many lives as possible. And so after we had kind of the initial trials for the adult age groups, they've been now kind of systematically going younger and younger in enrolling kids in these trials to do the tests to see that the vaccine is safe and effective in those age groups as well.
Thank you, Doctor. And just like Elizabeth wrote a question in, she got her answer. We're asking you to do the same thing. If you have a question for our expert, all you have to do is email us or give us a call. The phone number is 855-796-4475. And there's the email, questions@allhealthtv.com. Doctor, we have a similar question from Denise, and this is what she asks. Let's take a look at it. Any idea when younger children will be able to be vaccinated, even preschoolers through 10 years old? A little similar from the other one, but maybe even younger as well. Doctor?
Yeah, so another kind of great question, Denise. The trials are still ongoing for the younger kids. The youngest age group that they're enrolling in trials is 6 months. And so right now, the 6-month to 12-year-old trials are still kind of in process. And so we expect that we may have some of that data available in the fall, probably around September. The trials in the youngest age groups have some additional layers of complexity to them because we, in addition to seeing that the vaccine is effective, we need to determine what the proper dose is for these younger kids. When we look at other vaccines, some vaccines kids need higher doses for to generate a good immune system response as compared to adults, and in some vaccines kids need a lower dose. And so there's kind of an added step in those trials for younger kids to figure out which dose gives them the best protection and the least number of side effects associated. And so for that reason, the trials for the younger kids might take a bit longer for us to get all that information that we need.
And doctor, I'm curious, how do they recruit such young children? If you can answer that for me. It's just more of a curious question on my part. And what safeguards exist as well?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We're really rely on people in the general public to put themselves forward or to step up to participate in these clinical trials. And the support of the public for these trials has been just amazing. To think last year, the large adult trials enrolled 30 to 40,000 adults, and those are all volunteers who kind of volunteer to go through the trial process, which is a relatively significant kind of time commitment. And so when it comes to kids being enrolled in trials, kids are not able to legally provide their own consent. And so parents or legal guardians need to provide that consent on behalf of their child. Generally, what that involves is them having a discussion with the people who are running the clinical trials to understand any of the risks and benefits to trial participation, to understand exactly what would be expected of them. Often there's kind of symptom monitoring and visits to have medical evaluations. The COVID trials generally involve some blood tests and potentially some COVID swabs as well. And so parents need to kind of understand what exactly is expected and decide for themselves and their family whether they think that it's something that their child would be willing to participate in. Obviously, for older children who are able to kind of understand some of these concepts, and especially some of the teenagers, getting their assent or kind of implied consent, having them agree to participate is an important part as well, and making sure that they understand exactly what they're getting signed up for also is an important part of the process.
And is it a placebo trial, doctor?
Yeah, so these trials will be compared to placebo as well. And so generally, once you're enrolled, half of the patients will get the actual vaccine, and then half of the patients get a placebo, and then there's comparison between the two groups. With the younger kids especially, there's kind of that added step. A smaller group of them are enrolled in a trial to determine the best dose of the vaccine. And so in that trial, they may be kind of broken down into groups that receive a slightly different dose.
And we know, obviously, from 16 and up, 16 years of age, it has been approved. I'm going to be honest with you, I'm still on the fence with my teenagers. Do you get that as well with some concerned parents?
Yeah, so we've definitely had a lot of really good conversations with families in our clinic. I think, understandably, with what everyone has been through over this past year, people are really eager to try and get back to as much of a normal life as possible. But they have questions about the vaccine, and usually we're able to kind of discuss and answer those questions for them. We know that in the trials of people 16 years of age and older, the vaccines have been shown to be very safe and very effective. And since the trials, we've obviously seen rollout of these vaccines to millions of people, and that safety and efficacy has been confirmed through the use in many, many people now. And so generally, people have kind of different questions about how the vaccine works or what side effects they might experience, but with open discussion and answering questions and reviewing what we know and what we don't know, generally, most people have decided to go ahead and get the vaccine.
And with your valuable information to us today, I got to tell you, I am so happy to have you on Dr. Q&A today. Doctor, we have a short video from the Mayo Clinic, which explains what the new CDC guidelines mean for those that are fully vaccinated. Let's take a look and we'll talk about it right after.
The promise of vaccine all along has been getting back to life as normal. And we can see a little glimmer of that now, which is very exciting. But you do need to understand what it means to be fully vaccinated. Being fully vaccinated means that you have finished your vaccine, whether that's 1 dose or 2, and 2 weeks have passed. You do need 2 weeks for your immune system to mount its full response. You are then considered fully immunized. If you're fully vaccinated, you can now be safely with other people in your private life, in your home or their home, if they are also fully immunized. So that means you can have a friend over for dinner if you are fully vaccinated, and you don't have to wear masks, and you don't have to stay 6 feet apart. If you're fully vaccinated, you can be in the same house, unmasked, in close proximity to someone who's unvaccinated, who's low risk. It needs to be limited to 2 households together at one time. A grandparent that's fully vaccinated, doesn't live with their grandchild who's unvaccinated, can now safely give that child a hug.